So I'm going back through memory lane here. I want to compare and contrast some of these numbers. So I ran with Jeff Young in 2015 against Jack Conway, Sandy Overly. They wouldn't debate us or acknowledge us. The establishment, they'd already been chosen 6 months in advance, so somebody needed to oppose them just to, vote none of the above, at the very least. Now, after the election was over, their media was shitty, but somebody had printed up that it was the biggest blowout in Kentucky history. Okay. What? The worst, the biggest blowout? He was winning in the polls 68%, 61%, 59% to 12%, 13%, and then there was a bunch of undecideds. So 12 to 13%, is what we were polling. We actually got 21.2%, 37,887 votes, and he actually got more votes too. 68, 61, 59, he got 78.8%. So that was 140,627 votes. I believe the turnout rate was 13%. So this is 2015, right? So 2015 is, when we lost big time, but there was really no expectations of us winning. And if you throw your hat in the ring, apparently you get 20% of the vote. I did the same thing in one of the state representative races. So all I did was dick around on the internet, got 20% of the vote. So I think it's just that people, aren't really voting for us, but they're voting, they don't really want the other guy, so they're kind of like, fuck that guy. Fuck the main guy. So I was nervous that they said it was the biggest blowout. The biggest blowout in history, in Kentucky's history. So the spread is 57 points. There is a wide spread, 57.6 points. Now, in terms of turnout, in terms of how many votes we got 21.2% of the vote. And we beat the polls, right? We beat expectations, 21.2%. So let's compare 3 races, Kentucky gubernatorial Democratic races in 2007, 1995, and 1991. In 1991, you had Breer Reeton Jones, Scotty Baszler, Floyd G. Poore, and Gatewood. Gatewood got 5%, 5.25%. So me and Jeff Young would have beat Gatewood. Gatewood got 5%, we got 21.2%. So, we would have smashed Gatewood. Then you go to, the other ones would have beat us. They were pretty evenly split. 1995, you had 5 candidates. You had John A. Rose Jr., Gatewood Galbraith, Bob Babbage, Paulie Patton, Stephen Maynard. Stephen Maynard got 1%, Gatewood got 9%. And then John A. Rose Jr. got 21.18%, which is lower than 21.2%. So that means we would have beat John A. Rose Jr., Gatewood Galbraith, and Stephen Maynard. Gatewood Galbraith is one of my heroes, so to compare and contrast him is just an honor in of itself. So in 1991, we had higher numbers in Gatewood. In 1995, we had higher numbers in Gatewood and John A. Rose Jr. and Stephen Maynard. And then in 2007, Steve Brashear, he would get 41%, become the next governor. Bruce Lunsford had 21.42%, so they would both win. But Steve Henry, he got 17.49%. Gatewood, 5.95%. Otis Hensley, 1.09%. Jody Richards, 13.05%. So we would have beat all 4 of those people. So our percentage was higher than 4 people in 2007, 1 person in 91, and 3 people in 1995. So you might say, well, they're not talking about the lowest, they were talking about the spread. Okay, maybe they were talking about the spread. I got one more number for you. In 1987, Steve Brashear had run for governor before. So Steve Brashear is a perennial candidate, right? He just keeps running for governor. He got 18%. He ran against John Young Brown Jr. versus Wallace Wilkinson. And Wallace Wilkinson had hired James Carville. And Wallace Wilkinson came up the middle after Brashear and Brown were throwing mud at each other. Wallace Wilkinson brought us Cara and the Kentucky Lottery. Okay, so 1987, Steve Beshear. We would have beat Steve Beshear, 21.2%. So we had a higher percentage than Steve Beshear did in 1987. You know, 3 candidates in 95, 1 in 91, and 4 candidates in 2007. So we would have came in 3rd place out of 7 in 2007. Now, the last example, so the spread, okay, maybe it's the spread, right? There's 57 points. Well, in 1951, you had Lawrence Weatherby, 75% versus Hal Vincent, 22%, versus Jesse N.R. Cecil, 3%. So the difference between 75 and 3% is 72%. That's a spread of 72 points. Now, the only other objection you could say is that there's 3 candidates in this primary and there's 2 candidates in that primary. Well, then you have to say that. You have to say, you know, biggest blowout in in Kentucky history when there's only 2 candidates running for Democratic primary. So the 3% Jesse N.R. Cecil versus Lawrence Weatherby, that's 72-point spread. That's a 72-point spread. And 72 points is greater than 57. So no, me and Jeff Young's 2015 campaign was not the biggest blowout in Kentucky history. So right after that article came out, I started scouring the history. No, this can't be. But we did good. We had 37,887 people who voted for us. Overall, 2.8 million Kentuckians didn't even vote. So there was 4 million Kentuckians, 3 million didn't even vote. And the total was only 170,000. So where the hell is 2.8 million Kentuckians? 13% of the vote, so that's 87%. So if most of Kentucky actually voted, I bet you'd have some different numbers. So I just wanted to clarify. I just wanted to make sure that, not antiquity, but posterity. I just wanted to make sure posterity knew that headline, that we were the biggest blowout in Kentucky Democratic primary history. It's not the case. Not true. 1951, there was a spread of 72 points. Peace.